Hello, citizens of YouTube land.
Hey,
It's a brand new channel, guys.
and a brand new year.
For those of you who have never experienced us before, this is Denny and Son Comics. Brand new year, brand new beginnings. And hey, if you're checking out this channel, go ahead and check out our other main channel, Denny and Son.
Oh yeah, and this is also releasing on Denny and Son. So
Yeah.
this is a special bonus episode of the 12 Days of Christmas. So
The reason being for that is that the fact that we just simply couldn't find the Santa Claus. So, with that being said, today's comic review is The Deviant. And as you can see, we both got a copy of it.
Yeah.
It's a Christmas story by James Tynion IV and Joshua Hickson, with lettering by Hassan. I cannot pronounce that last name, so if you ever watch this, we're sorry about that, but we don't want to offend you by getting it wrong. So
Joshua Hickson is also the artist behind the comic.
And James Tynion is your writer.
Mm-hmm. So The Deviant opens up in Chicago of 2023, December 2023, where we're introduced to our main character, Michael, who's in this department store ready to just standing in line and, kind of being to himself, in which his partner, Derek, that's actually only revealed until later in the comic, comes up to him and asks if he's here, and he's like, yeah, I'm just thinking about wrapping paper and how he can't wrap to save his life, even though he was taught how to wrap correctly. And then it's like his partner asks him, how does it make you feel? He's like there's something wrong with me. And then we get to title card, The Deviant, A Christmas Story. It's actually a pretty cool opening setup here.
Yeah. So
there's very little stuff we can show in the comic, guys, because, fair warning, this comic is rated M for mature, which means children probably shouldn't be reading this.
Now, some of you out there are going to be like, partner, I don't want no LGBTQ characters in my comics. Well, guess what about that, though? This is an original story, an original comic, so what's the problem?
Yeah, this is like, they didn't take any, existing characters and turn them gay. No, this is an original story with original characters, with some elements that may have been inspired by some real life events. We'll get onto that later.
So I want to point this out. I can't show this part, but this is an example of the art style here, guys. If you can kind of see up close.
We unfortunately can't show that other panel because of YouTube's terms with blood and violence. Because again, this comic has an M rating. We cannot stress this further, that children should not be reading this comic.
No, but hey, parents out there, if you think that they would be mature enough, again, we implore you guys to screen your material first, because, yeah. So, with that being said, though, I mean, there is some really, really great artwork here, and another thing is that the story had transitioned from December 2023 in Chicago to 50 years earlier in Milwaukee of 2023 December. And as it had turned out, there was this dark, creepy mall, and a lone worker is there at night, and they start to think, or they start to hear something, so they go to investigate. And I can't say what happens, really, but it's
bad. Find one of their coworkers with his sight missing, if you catch my drift.
Yeah. Now, how did that happen? Well, The Deviant. That's how. Because we can't even say the K word, really.
No. So there happens to be a serial K word loose and about in Milwaukee that they call The Deviant.
And the reason why he's called The Deviant is because he seems to have a predilection for a certain type of a younger person, shall we say.
All dressed up like a mall Santa.
and he, I guess, wants to silence them after his acts. So this is why he ends up making them sleep with the fishes.
Yeah, and by the way,
the cops eventually track him down to his.
By the way, here I don't know if we can really show this, but this is like one of the coolest moments. This is like one of the coolest parts in the comic. Like it, just this entire image right here. It's a 2-page image. You get that a lot actually in the comics. Like you get the title card, you get that, and it's really cool. Like they've done
the story transitions to 50 years later, and
in Milwaukee again, but this time it's in the state penitentiary that's there
because the Deviant had been caught, and he.
Yeah, the name of the Deviant K-word is Randall Olson, and our main character Michael here is interviewing him for a
and
comic
our main
that he's writing.
Yeah, which, guys, since he had brought it up earlier, there's this particular story out there who this may or may not be inspired by, which is fine. But there's this particular story out there, and there was a movie that was made on the story. Okay, and it's called, I think it's called Gacy's Friend, but don't quote me on that, guys, because I'm not for sure. I'd have to look it up, and we can maybe add that in later. But the story goes that there was this man who developed a kinship with John Wayne Gacy, who was also a serial K-word. And he also liked certain types of individuals who were younger. And he also made them sleep with the fishes.
Oh, yeah. Can we not really say teenage boys, or...
I don't know.
You just skirting around the lines.
I skirt around the lines.
Okay.
Skirting around the lines is cool. So that can be our phrase. Since another YouTube channel has type, so we can have cool.
Yeah. All right.
So, anyways, he's interviewing him, and the guy is describing how he likes certain things and how he wouldn't have hurt them, and which we kind of know is a lie.
And then he this is one of the bits of dialogue I can actually read because there's lots of language and slurs.
And fair warning, okay, if you are an LGBTQ member and you do decide to check this comic book out, there is the word that describes a bundle of sticks that also describes a member of a community.
Yeah. He says, this is one of the bits of dialogue that I can actually read of this comic. He says, he's like, did you know the boys? He's like, I suppose that depends on how you define new. There's always a bit of lurid undertone to that word, isn't there? I worked with them every day, so yes, I knew them casually enough. Did I know them in a biblical sense? Not that the Bible cares much for you or me.
Right.
And then he goes on to, and then he goes on to the rest of the interview where he's like, I wasn't having you know what with them. I wasn't having you know what with anybody.
So the guy asks him, hey, why are you here? Are you just a typical journalist who's going to make up another story about me? And the guy tells him that, well, I write comics.
He's like, I thought you were some kind of writer. He's like, but you're not a journalist who just write up little made up things. He's like, I write comic books. And he's like, oh Lord, deliver me. What are you gonna do to the story of a candy colored Christmas killer who's gonna go head to head against some silly lawman in a silly costume? He's like, it's not the kind of comic book I write anymore, or not anymore. He's like, you should. I bet there's be more money in it. He's like, you'd be surprised these days. And I'm like, that was probably the writers taking a little bit of a jab at the big two, Marvel and DC. Again, the rest of this I can't actually read because.
So it transitions to the kid when he was a little boy.
Yeah, it transitions to Michael's childhood, in which he's with one of his friends, and his friends is describing him the Deviant killer.
Deviant K-word.
Yeah, well, I already said killer.
Yeah, I know you did. All right. You got to skirt around the edges.
anyways, he's describing him the deviant K word, all right, and how he was like some mall. Yeah, he was like a mall Santa or something, and then I can't read the rest of that.
Because boys are going to be boys, and boys are going to make up lies and BS, and yeah. So,
and apparently this is how he grew up. Apparently he grew up only a few miles from the house he was arrested in, and that was the first time he ever heard that a man could do that to another man.
Yeah, but I guess it was that, it was the first time he had ever heard that a man could be with another man in a certain type of sense.
Yeah, and then the Randall Olson, Mr. Olson here, he says, that's funny. He's like, how's that funny? And he says, for me, it was Geen. One of the
famous serial K words.
Yeah, he's like, for me, it was Geen, and all that. And he's like, yeah, and then he goes on to describe Michael and how much he feels like there was something wrong with him and all that. And then this is something that we can actually...
So I guess then it transitions. It's 4 weeks till Christmas, and we can kind of show this a bit towards the end here. And as you can see, there is what appears to be a teenage boy who is getting out of his elf costume.
Well, don't forget that here he says, so I want to know, Michael, what's the story you want to tell about me? And then it transitions to him coming out of the prison, where he asks... or his partner asks him what he was like, and he says, familiar.
Yeah. So, like I said, he had there appears to be a teenage boy. He is getting dressed for a shower. We're coming toward the end of the comic, and lo and behold, who should be here? Because I'm going to cover up the censored part here, but look who it is.
It's the killer Santa Claus from 50 years earlier. And yeah, to be continued. Don't worry, if this video does well and you want a part 2, we'll pick up the Deviant issue number 2 and do a review for it.
Yeah, I mean, we probably will anyway.
Probably will anyways, do all 9 issues as they come out, because the Deviant number 3 comes out this month on the 17th.
So, I give this one, guys...
judging by the writing, the artwork, the cover, everything, I'd give it a solid 5 out of 5.
Yeah, I'd give it a 5 out of 5 too. The artwork, the style, just the direction of the whole thing. It's very well drawn, and it's very well colored, and it's very well edited, and it's also... props, Mr. James Tinian IV, because it's very well written as well.
Yeah. It's obviously...
And I might also add one other thing, that perhaps, I don't know their mindset, but perhaps they took inspiration from a certain franchise from the 80s called Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe I was going. I guess I was trying to go for a bit, but then I realized they were deviating away from all that.
Yeah,
get it? Okay,
I do. So, yeah, but as always, as we do like on the other channel, if you have read The Deviant number 1 and you believe that it is the worst comic book of all time, well then clearly you have not read. You want to throw one out? What's a bad comic you've read?
You know what? I have read a bad comic. What If Dark? Gwen Stacy, in which it was Spider-Man that saves Gwen Stacy. Might do a review for it because it is laughably bad.
There you go. So, but as always, because if you're new to this and this is your first time viewing this channel, as we do like on the other channel, as always, hey, we're just two idiots with a webcam. Our opinions do not matter, except they actually do, because we have a YouTube show, except they actually don't. So, having said all that, guys, stay tuned because we got a lot more coming up. I'm not exactly sure. We'll get a detailed idea of where we're going to go with this next on what's coming up. I do know that we're going to have some comic book related movies coming up.
That.
Fine. I think I might have done this on the main channel, but
You have, but this is fine as well. We'll just delete that off.
this is next.
That's next.
So, because it was quick and readily available. So this is next. Spider-Man: The Ultimate Guide.
Yeah. Sorry, I just saw that. I'm like, wait a second, there we go.
So that'll be next time on the channel. But until then, there's only one thing left to say, and that is...
Peace and love from Denny and Son. Bye.